In this lecture, we're going to discuss the having clause. The having clause allows us to filter after an aggregation has already taken place, so it comes after a group by call. Let's take a look back at one of our previous examples. Let's imagine this very simple query where we're selecting some sort of company column and then taking the sum of the sales column from some financial table where we group by company. So we're aggregating sales per company. Now we've already seen we can filter before executing the group by with a where statement. For example, here I could put a where right before my group by and say where company not equal to Google, because maybe I don't want to include Google in my final results. So that's okay because the company isn't being aggregated in any sort of way. It is in the group by statement. However, it's not having an aggregate function being called on it. So I can use where. But what if we actually wanted to filter based off the sum sales? So keep in mind that since we're calling sum on sales, that's not going to happen until after that group by statement is executed all the way at the bottom, which means we cannot use where to filter based off aggregate results because those happen after the actual where statement is executed. So if after performing the group by and calculating the sum of sales per company, I wanted to then perform an additional filter on that result based off the sum of sales, I could add the having clause. So having allows us to use the aggregate result as a filter along with a group by. So you can essentially think of this as a where statement, but only for something that is being aggregated through the group by. And hopefully you can see that connection quite clearly here. So again, here I'm able to now filter based off that aggregate result of sum of sales in my having clause. So here I'm saying, do the filter of the where, and then after you group by, go ahead and do another filtering where we're having the sum of sales greater than some number like $1,000. So you would end up with a query that looks something like this. All right, let's explore some examples of having in our own database. I'm going to jump to pgadmin now. All right, here I am at pgadmin. I'm going to work through a very similar example that we just made up. Let's first check out our payment table. So select everything from payments, go ahead and run this. And we're already familiar with this. We have the customer ID, staff ID, etc. Let's go ahead and take the total sum amounts for customer. So we'll say select the customer ID and then take the sum amount from payments, and we will group this by customer ID. So we can run this, and this all works out fine. I already know that if I, for some reason, wanted to filter out certain customers, I could say something like this, where customer ID, and maybe I wanted to say not equal to, or I could say something like not in some list of IDs. Like, let's go ahead and remove 184, 87, and 477. We run this again, and no problem, you saw that now those no longer exist here in the results. Now, what I cannot do is filter with a where statement on some amount, because the sum of the amount's not going to happen until after I call the group by. So what I'm going to do then, let's go ahead and remove this where example to simplify things. I can say after the group by, having some amount, and let's just say greater than 100. So we go ahead and run this, and we can check out the results here. And now you'll notice everything's been filtered, so all the sums are now greater than 100. You should also notice, just like when we were using order by with an aggregate function on a column, we have to actually specify some amount. We don't just say amount. Let's explore using having with a count call instead of just a sum call. We can do this by maybe exploring the customer table. Just to remind you, we'll select everything from customer table. So this is the customer ID, a store ID, first name, last name, their email, address, ID, etc. So what we can do here is, let's imagine we wanted to know the number of customers per store. What I could do is, if we scroll over here, grab the store ID and then count the number of customer IDs associated with them after I group by store ID. So we're going to say store ID and then count customer ID from customer after I group by store ID. We run this and I can see the total count of customers per store. Keep in mind, I don't have to actually pass in customer ID because this is just saying how many rows are there per store ID. So I could put an asterisk here, run this again, and you'll notice I get back the exact same results. Now let's imagine I wanted to select only stores that had more than 300 customers. Well, in this case, I'd have to filter based off something that's already been aggregated. So I can't do that with where, but I can do it with having. So I can say having a count asterisk greater than, let's say, 300, and that's essentially performing the filter after the group by. And keep in mind, depending on how you want to think about this, you can switch out an asterisk there for customer ID, and it will perform the exact same. So customer ID, run this, we get back the exact same results. It's up to you which one's easier to read. Here, if you come back to this quite clearly reads as number of customers grouped by store, where the number of customers is more than 300. If we just left an asterisk there, then we'd have to remember that the customer table represents all the customers per store there. Okay, so let's go ahead and test your skills. In the next lecture, we'll give you some challenges with the having clause. I'll see you there. Welcome back, everyone. In this lecture, we're going to give you some challenge tasks that focus on the having clause. As always, we have the challenge, the expected result, some hints in case you need them, and then the solution. Let's get started. We are launching a Platinum service for our most loyal customers. We will assign Platinum status to customers that have had 40 or more transaction payments. What customer IDs are eligible for Platinum status? Okay, here comes the expected result. So the expected result are these 3 customer IDs. And if you want, you can also show how many transactions they had. We can see here that there's 3 people that have had 40 or more transactions. Here's some hints in case you need them. So the hint is to use the payment table and to recall that any column can be passed into a count call. Coming up next is the solution. So the solution, pretty straightforward here. We're going to select the customer ID, and then we're going to count, and you can either pass in a column here specific to the amount or just pass in an asterisk. And then we're going to grab this from the payment table, group by the customer ID, and then we're going to say having a count greater than or equal to 40. Essentially answering the question that they've had 40 or more payment rows associated with that particular customer ID, thus earning them that Platinum status. All right, your next challenge is to answer the following. What are the customer IDs of customers who have spent more than $100 in payment transactions with our staff ID member number 2? Again, that's customer IDs of people who have spent more than $100 in payment transactions, but only with the payment transactions that occurred with the staff ID member number 2. Here comes the expected result. So there should be only 5 customers that have done this, and then here's the associated sum. So they're all over $100 here. Upcoming are some hints. So the hint is to use the payment table and to remember to use the where statement to first filter based on the staff ID column and then use the group by clause. And then finally, let's see the solution. So the solution, here we select the customer ID and we take this sum of the amount in order to calculate who has more than $100 from the payment table. We first, however, filter where staff ID is equal to 2. That way, when we do the group by on the customer ID, we're only considering people where the actual payment transaction occurred with the staff ID equal to 2. And then we check for having a sum amount of greater than 100. All right, and that's it for your challenge tasks. I'll see you at the next lecture.